Roughly 2.7 million people live in Toronto. In 2016, over 16 million people commuted to the city, and they brought their trash with them, making an already bad problem worse.
Tom Comiskey, mayor of Ingersoll, Ontario, says, "Keep your trash to yourself." On June 20th, the small-town mayor brought his message to the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, saying that Toronto ought to keep their garbage within their own city limits, rather than trucking it off to Ingersoll.
In the last decade, the City of Toronto introduced Target 70, a plan to divert 70% of Toronto's waste away from landfills. In Toronto and the rest of the GTA, there is a growing community of people who make reducing their waste a part of their lifestyle. Marie Jonchin is part of this community. Born in France, Marie and her Canadian partner Chris strive to live a waste-free life in Toronto.
It's not like it was this one thing that happened in our life and it was like, oh, the epiphany, we need to turn zero waste. I think it's more of a process. I grew up always being caring about the environment. I've always loved to recycle properly and sort things how they're supposed to, this kind of things. And it just at some point, I think over time, it was just starting to notice that, okay, I recycle, but there's a lot of plastic in there, or I don't know, just seeing the trash on the street, or just small things you notice, and little by little. I think it's really something that takes time to realize. But when you do, this is when you start looking at, okay, what can I actually do about that?
Zero waste activist Bea Johnson created the 5 R's initiative. This is an extension of the traditional 3 R's to make creating a zero waste lifestyle as easy as 5 steps.
The first R is refuse. So that's the first thing you're gonna think about when you wanna become zero waste, basically. All these things that are free out there, and people love free stuff, right? The second one is reduce. So when just look at what you consume, what you buy, and ask yourself, do I really need that? Reuse, obviously, reuse. It's the biggest one, I think, that has the most impact. It's get rid of disposable stuff and replace that by reusable stuff. And then anything that you cannot refuse, reduce, or reuse, then potentially you can recycle it. Even though I don't think recycling is the solution. It should really be a last resort thing, and as much as possible avoid things like plastic. And the last one is rot, so that's really composting, but for the alliteration you needed an R, right? And so yeah, compost as much as possible.
Gord Perks is an environmentalist, political activist, and the current city councillor for Toronto's Ward 14. Gord has fought to help create less waste in Canada's largest city, Toronto.
Given the regulatory environment we exist in, the provincial and federal packaging regulations, which are non-existent, we do a pretty good job of collecting up the recyclables and compostables and getting people to separate their materials. We still produce, though, a fantastic amount of garbage, and the ecological impacts of that are unacceptable.
What else? I guess it would have started back in 2014. I watched the documentary Cowspiracy, which basically talks about the impact of the animal agriculture industry on the environment. And that basically led me to adopt a vegan diet. And from that point I was like, okay, how else can I have my lifestyle more positively impact the environment and animals and also my own health? So that was kind of where the ball started rolling. And from there, it's kind of been a fun adventure / challenge of what else can I do? What new thing can I find? Which is one thing I really like about it, is there's always kind of something new you can do. I mean, honestly, I'd say pets is probably more challenging than children, which depending on how you raise your kids, it could change. We're really low waste with our daughter Autumn. So like we cloth diaper, we use cloth wipes. So we laugh that we actually didn't see an increase in our garbage production after she was born because we don't use disposable diapers. So if that's something you do use, obviously that will impact your waste. The flip side with our dogs is dogs make mess, right? So like, you know, obviously when we take them for a walk, they poop, and I think our neighborhood and our neighbors would probably frown upon it if we just, as much as it will decompose, I don't think they'd be a fan if we just left it there to decompose.
Leah Simeone is new to the community, but she is embracing the zero waste lifestyle with her family.
It's a bit of a gradual process, but I did have a trigger. And my trigger was in about November of 2014, we got a puppy. We got a Labradoodle puppy from the parent. And he's very rambunctious, as a puppy would be. He was 4 months old at the time. And just taking him for walks up and down the streets, up and down the waterfront, he would try to eat everything on the side of the roads. And it draws your attention to what he's going after. He's going after someone dropped a lunch with a sandwich in a baggie, he's going after juice boxes, he's going after bottles, he's going after all this garbage that was just lying around on the floor, on the pathways, on the side of the street, along our waterways, and it pissed me off a lot, actually. But what it did was it made me pay attention to the amount of litter that was actually still on the ground, even though we're supposedly, as a society here in Ontario at least, fairly aware of the impact of plastic and litter, and trying to recycle more. So that was my trigger. But I think I was always a little bit more environmentally conscious, even as a student. When I was in undergraduate school and graduate school, I would be involved in environmentally focused organizations and do volunteer work in that field. So I was already kind of on that path when the trigger came about. I do have hearing loss, and I wear hearing aids in both ears. And as a result, I'm stuck with what I can get. I can't demand that hearing aid manufacturers make the size of the battery that I use a reusable battery. I can't demand that they not put the stickers on the batteries or put the batteries in the little packs that they put them in. And my newest hearing aids are different than my older ones in that instead of having a permanent mold that fits into my ear, they have these little like dome buds that are similar to those headphones, the sport headphones, that are supposed to be thrown away and replaced. And these particular hearing aids are new. These are new challenges for me. I'm not really in a place yet where I figured out ways to deal with that.
I definitely, I kind of, it's sort of split reaction. Sometimes I get like genuine interest and they're kind of intrigued. Even after I explain it, I find most people are like, yeah, that's cool, but I'm probably not gonna do that. But yeah, sometimes I get like really, really weird looks, like what's this crazy girl doing? And that I just kind of shrug off because there's lots of things I do in my life that are probably a little bit more different that I get weird looks for anyway. So I just sort of roll with it, but I definitely, I think there's, especially in Brampton, and I don't know what it is specifically about the climate here, but I do think that there is a little bit of a resistance to that.
So it's not like you have this one-stop shop that is zero waste and you can get all your zero waste stuff. This does not exist. It does exist in some other cities actually. You have zero waste supermarkets, I think in Ottawa, Montreal, Victoria. So there's some cities that have them, but not yet here. So it was a bit of a, where can we go to get what? Kind of exercise that we had to go through. And then not just that, it's going there and then asking them if they're okay to take our containers, because that can seem like a little weird initially, right? If you're not used to it. So we found places, definitely, things that don't look weird, or just you take your vegetable and fruit and you just don't put them in a plastic bag. People don't ask questions when you do that, so that's fine.
Some people in the zero waste community take reducing to a whole new level. By making their own hygiene products like toothpaste, they cut their personal waste and are helping Toronto achieve their waste diversion goal.
There's a few things we tried and it basically made our life hell. So we were like, okay, we're not doing that. Because you can really be intense when you think about zero waste. You could really push it. We put limits, basically. If it's too annoying and too time consuming, and if we're not having fun doing it, or those kind of things we think about, we just don't do it, because there's no point making our life hell.
zero waste is a bit of a misnomer. You know, even if you're not consuming any plastic at all, you're still producing waste. You're producing some food waste, you're producing some waste of other sorts. If your clothes wear out beyond repair, you know, you're gonna end up with shreds. So it isn't a misnomer, but it's an ideal, it's a goal, and that's what I think that people who want to live a zero waste lifestyle, at least consciously, they strive for that.
I think that, frankly, the only hope that we, A, live within the scarce amount of resources that the planet offers us, and B, don't contaminate our land and underground aquifers or our air if you go to garbage incineration. That's only possible to achieve those environmental outcomes if we get to zero waste. The question in my mind is whether it's a lifestyle choice or whether it's something we all have to do socially together. I think that if we try to say it's the individual's responsibility one at a time, each of us has to figure out how to buy food without packaging on it, how to buy consumer electronics that are going to be reused and refurbished into new consumer electronics. As long as we make that an individual responsibility, we will fail. It's important each of us does our best to make use of the systems that we have. It's important that each of us take on an advocacy role, both showing that we can do better, but also demanding better of our governments. And similarly, they should be demanding better of people like me, people who hold office, saying, what are you doing, not just to provide programs, but also to pass tough laws. So those are the things individually that I think we need to do, be advocates. But collectively, we need to design a regulatory and a recycling system that makes it possible for all of us to achieve zero waste.